I was a sophomore in college, and at the time, I was just really overwhelmed with a lot of things. Of course, being somebody who is like a type A personality, you always want to be on, you always want to be perfect. And it was something where I knew, just especially with my background of being a PK, a preacher's kid, that you're always on display and you always have to be perfect and nothing could ever go wrong. And so you live with just knowing that the bar is set really high. And if you don't feel like you can attain whatever level you're trying to get to, then it messes with you totally. And I have a family history of depression, which I've learned more about as an adult. But at the time, we were just very spiritual Pentecostal people, and we're just going to try to pray it away and deal with it that way. Well, sometimes life doesn't allow you to do that. So at the time, I was working a part-time job. I was also in college full-time. I was doing theater as part of my scholarship, and I had all these lines to learn because it was like a one person show that I was supposed to be doing as I'm juggling all these things and my classwork and then my own personal issues of not ever feeling like I fit in, like nobody really cared about me. Um, and just feeling isolated because I was also not living on the college campus. I mean, so there's a lot of variables that played into this, and my esteem was as low as you could go. Again, being in college, you think you're starting over and it's something new and fresh, and you can create your own narrative. And sometimes the old narrative creeps in, and you are just what you've always been. And so all these things weighed in on me. And so one night, and then finances, being a broke college student plays into that too. So it got to be that one night all of these things converged into the perfect storm. And so I sat in my room and I got a whole lot of pills because I was too chicken to do anything with the knife. And I thought, if I could just get the pills and take them, it would be an easier way to do it. That plus, I had never let on to anybody, no friends, certainly not my granny, who would have preached to me that I was going to hell, for doing something like that. And she was also in her late 60s, early 70s, and had a whole lot of health complications, which is another factor into that too. So, I mean, again, I just could not give the perception that things weren't right in my world when everything was all blowing up. So I had gathered the pills and I had gotten something to drink, and I was prepared to do it. Give me a second. And I did not do it because I was so fearful about going to hell. That's the thing that stopped me. It wasn't about trying to see another day. It wasn't about leaving friends and family behind, because in that moment, it's all about you. And the last thing, I couldn't think about anybody else. I had to think about myself. And I just wanted the pain and the anxiety to be over. And I didn't know how to make it stop. And I thought, well, if I'm not here, nobody's really caring about me that much anyhow. So what the heck happens if I do this? It'll just be one less thing to worry about and one less person to have to deal with. And I couldn't get over my Pentecostal training that said I was going to hell. And that's the thing that literally as it was scared the hell out of me. Is it stopped me from going forward. Is that I didn't want to go to hell. And I know that it sounds like a very silly reason for not, but it's the thing that kept me here. And I've found out future forward that my family's depression issues have led into my own depression issues. We're not isolated in a box. And so I've become somebody who, because of my awareness, has started to seek treatment for that, because the lows get really low. And even now, 30 years later, I have to do things in a sense, not to trick myself, but to, like, when I know those triggers are in place, I have to find ways to deal with that, because I don't want to get that low again. And 2015 was another low point for me. I'm fortunate enough that I didn't think about suicide, but just because you don't have those actual plans in place, once you've considered it before, it's always in the back of your mind. And you don't want to talk about that to other people. But again, people have this perception of me as being strong and together. And I give that because that's what I want people to think. I don't ever want people to think that I'm less than or that I'm weak. And so, and that's pressure put upon me on my own. It used to be a family thing because of who I was connected to, and you don't want to bring the family name down. And even if you don't have riches, you have a good name. And so there's a lot of pressure with that. And now, being more of a public personality, I certainly don't want anything to take away from the name. But there are times that get really dark, and you don't know how you're going to get to the next day. And sometimes I love being in my room a little too much. Everything that I love is in here. I got TV, I got a bed, kitchen's not far, and I can just isolate. But I've learned that isolating too much is not good. But it's hard to be very vulnerable with people when you know that there's a possibility that people will take that information and use it in a way that is harmful to you, which puts you in an even further spiral downward. So that's a piece of my story.